Hey everyone, welcome to Greenpointe. This is one of our wonderful how-to videos. Today we're going to be the first video we did on how to drum sand with an Easy 8 drum sander. Today we're going to go over how to edge, and today we're using a Super 7, the 7-inch disc sander. It's got the wheels on the back side, which actually they do ride on the floor, so it sits just like that. You don't want to try to hold up on it to try to regulate how it sands, or you don't want to push down on it. It weighs at least 25 pounds, so it's got plenty of weight. When you're using it, you're just guiding it, so you're not pushing down or trying to hold up on it. It does have a bag and a vacuum impeller in there, so it does push the air and the dust into the bag. As long as you don't let the bag get too full, it does a pretty good job. Once it gets about half full, you want to dump it out. And just remember that wood dust, if it's piled up in a spot, that it is combustible, so make sure you store those bags outside, especially if you're taking a break or overnight. So on a edge sander, because it does have the wheels on the back side, it's set up to where it only cuts just out here on the nose. And so when you're using the edger, it just cuts that little section right there. So it doesn't sit flat and cut the whole thing. And so when you're edging, then you just remember that this whole thing's spinning around, but you're only cutting that little swath each time. And so there's a lot of different ways people edge. This is how I was taught. The big thing is make sure that you're keeping a pattern is really important, and that's going to be true through every part of the process of sanding a wood floor. Anytime you're sanding a large area like a wood floor, then keeping patterns and being very meticulous and methodical about all the process. So when you're drum sanding, you move over a certain amount each time. When you're edging, you keep the same pattern, so that way you're not missing spots, things like that. When you're buffing, same thing. You want to make sure that you're keeping a pattern, so you're not over buffing or over sanding one spot and missing others. So when you're edging with boards running parallel to the floor, then if you have the little area here that you're sanding, well, if I just go back and forth, then you're only cutting that little swath. But if you angle it a little bit, see how much more cutting surface that you get. So when you edge, instead of just going back and forth like this, you actually want to edge and turn the edger slightly as you go back and forth, and you catch a bigger area. One thing you really want to watch out for is cutting complete cross grain, which we'll talk about that once we get down here at the end. But any true cross grain scratches running across the board shows up as cross grain scratch lines, and they're kind of hard to get rid of. So that's really the main thing that you got to watch out for. And the more you edge, then the more you kind of refine your process, and you start having really good light is key too. Some people will actually put a halogen light or an LED light down on the floor, shining down the wall, so they can get really good view of any cross grain scratches, things like that, so they can make sure to get rid of them. So when you're edging on the ends, to get away from that cross grain scratch, again, you turn the edger sideways so that you're actually getting a 45-degree angle cut instead of a 90-degree cross grain cut. So when you're cutting at the end, it's the same thing. You're angling it, so you're up, back, up, back, up, back. So some people will come up and then back down the other way. Like I said, there's a lot of different methods that people have learned. You just kind of find the most comfortable. Some people will be on one knee, 1 foot up like this, or one knee up, one knee on the ground, and they'll kind of hobble along. I found it was easier to actually, one great thing about the edger is it's very powerful, so it gets the job done fast. So I actually got down and edged like this. It's kind of one of those things, it's not a comfortable process, but it is very quick with something like a Super 7 or a B2. You just have to find what's most comfortable, and like I said, keep a pattern. When you're sanding from the finished wood down to raw wood at the beginning, that's the perfect time to kind of refine your process or your patterns to make sure you're not missing anywhere, because it's really easy to see where you've been, where you haven't been. That's one of the great advantages of trowel filling after your 40 grit or your rough sand, is that when you do your medium sand, it's really easy to see where you've been, where you haven't been, because it either has filler on it or it doesn't have filler on it. And then one little trick that I learned as well, it's actually a pin, but using a carpenter's pencil, when you get down to 100 grit or your fine grit, usually 100 grit, then you're not sanding off filler or anything. What you do is you just take, and again, you want to use a carpenter's pencil, not an ink pen, but you just go through, don't press real hard, but just do a little scratch like that, and you'll leave this little zigzag line along there. And then as you're edging using the same pattern that you used on your other grits, then you can see and make sure you're getting rid of that little pencil line squiggle along the edge. So a couple helpful hints. Hopefully that answers a lot of questions. You can always call us or email us if you have any other questions, or if you need to have any other specifics about it. Thanks for watching, and as usual, like and subscribe. Thanks.